Colin Fragar owned 13 properties by the time he'd finished his 4-year university degree, but didn't own a car. It was at that point he realised he'd mastered the art of paying now and playing later. Now he's on a mission to help ordinary folk like you and I navigate the council approval process. And as boring as that may sound, his approach to marketing is anything but. It's an enviable episode 512 of the award-winning Small Business Big Marketing podcast.
Well, I said, welcome to a small business marketing show, where successful small business owners share their souls to take your marketing straight to the lead. Now, here's your host, Mr. Tim Reid.
And welcome back to your weekly dose of Build It and They Will Come marketing. I'm your host, Timbo Reid. You, infinitely more importantly, are a motivated business owner and you are ready to crank out some great marketing to build that beautiful business of yours into the empire it absolutely deserves to be. Big episode today. We catch up with law graduate turned property entrepreneur Colin Fragar, who is doing some very, very smart marketing. We're talking trust boxes, magalogs, and some pretty funky marketing ideas on top of those. This week's Monster Prize Draw winner is an expat living overseas whose customer satisfaction levels have skyrocketed thanks to an idea they picked up from tuning in to this podcast. And I let you in on next week's guest who's experiencing only a moderate, and I say moderate, amount of success. But he couldn't be happier. As per usual, team, there is marketing GOLD dripping from the ceiling over here at Small Business Big Marketing's HQ. So let's get stuck right in. Hey, just a reminder to join the Small Business Big Marketing's Facebook group. It's called the Small Business Big Marketing Tribe, and we have got so many great discussions happening at the moment. We've got one tribe member, Katie O'Neill, who's shared in a post how she's managed to make TikTok her number one marketing channel. I find that amazing because I don't even know how TikTok works, but she does explain it in her post. Another member, Ben Mignatoli, has used the tribe to research whether he should include pricing on his website, and he's got some fantastic feedback there. Plus, we have Zoom catch-ups every now and then where we get to hear what's working for other business owners in growing their business. It's all free. It's all on Facebook. Just search Small Business Big Marketing Tribe, answer the 58 qualifying questions, and you're in. Well, it's not 58, it's actually 3. And then you're in. Colin Fragar purchased his first property when he was 19. By the time he'd finished his 4-year law degree, he'd created a portfolio of 13 properties, 13. How good's that? And decided to follow his dream of becoming a full-time property investor and entrepreneur. After some interesting ups and downs, which he shares, including selling up almost everything and moving to Africa and a house fire that nearly crippled his business, Colin is now the founder of the Council Approval Experts, which is a town planning firm focused on helping ordinary people like you and I navigate the council approval process. And how's this? His business has thousands of clients, 25 staff, and has so far helped over 5,000 homeowners get council approval. Now, we cover plenty of ground in this chat, including why he books consults rather than taking anyone's call, how trust boxes have increased his conversion rate by 600%, the power of a magalog. If you don't know what a magalog is, you soon will, and why he avoids having his technical people do the selling. Here's Colin explaining how he'd amassed such a big property portfolio by the time he'd finished university.
Yeah, almost. I can't believe that number. If I had to put it down to one thing, I would say definitely educate. I did an exchange to New York just for a semester abroad when I was a university student. And I was just obsessed with property at that time and investing. And it was the days when you could walk into a big bookstore and there was a huge aisle of books. And so I bought something like 100 real estate investment books. The only challenge was I was in New York, how to get back to Sydney. And when I came back through customs, I actually had to buy a whole suitcase just for books, came through customs, and the customs officer literally went through every single page. They thought that I was trying to bring in drugs or something like that. But real estate is obviously something that I'm passionate about. And I think particularly for young people, it's just a great opportunity. And I think so many young people, it's obviously a business podcast, but so many young people think they can't get into the market. But you've just got to think laterally and creatively. And there's ways to do it.
All right. Well, I hear you. I'm not accepting your answer. I'm going to dig deeper. I have. I mean, last night I took my 3 children out. They're 23, 21 and 20. I would love nothing more for them to, well, yeah, I think so. I'd love nothing more than for them to buy a property. It means them having debt, and they are young and carefree. Let's just explore a little bit more. So knowledge, buy lots of books, do lots of reading. Yep. You said be obsessed. If you have a goal or an objective in mind, be obsessed with it. I get that. From what I've learnt of you, you didn't grow up with a silver spoon. You weren't lent the money. Your dad went guarantor on your first property. That's cool.
That's right.
But come on, what else is there? How does one go about? And this is not a property show, I know it's a business marketing show, but I think it's really interesting to see how you got your start.
Yeah.
What else is there?
Something that I share with people is I think they need to get over themselves. I think sometimes there's a lot of pride in oneself to think that you've got to be independent. You've got to be able to do it by yourself. You've got to save the deposit. You've got to get to a position in life where you've got ability to get your own loan. But what happens along the way is you get through your 20s, you don't buy a property, you get to your 30s, your 40s, and you've almost missed the boat. So I remember I was reading Stephen R. Covey's book. On the very first page, Stephen R. Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and he says, interdependence is a higher virtue than independence. And so, yeah, that's how I bought my first property. I thought, okay, well, I can either wait till I'm in my 30s or 40s to buy my first property,
and be independent.
Yeah. Or I can be interdependent, which means you rely on the people around you. And so I said to Dad, hey, Dad, I can't afford the mortgage. I've got the deposit, but I can't get the mortgage. Would you be able to be guarantor? And so guarantor obviously just means, doesn't mean that they're not a co-borrower. It's not at that level. It's just if I can't pay the debt, then the bank comes after my dad. And thankfully they didn't.
And then obviously you just worked hard. I mean, back then, how long ago are we talking? Because I think time.
Yes, it's 15 years ago.
15 years ago. So property's cheaper, but it's all relative. And so to get the deposit, you obviously worked around the clock, had a couple of jobs, saved, were frugal, weren't buying the fancy pale ales that are available today. You were just living on Carlton Draft or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's how you did it, right?
Yeah, and I think avoiding bad debt. I think a risk of particularly young men is the car. And I remember I was doing an interview once as a young man, probably about 25 or something like that. And the last question this magazine they asked, they said they were talking about property investment, and I think by then I had about 4 or 5 property investments, and they said, last question, Colin, they said, what sort of car do you drive? They thought they were probably going to say a Porsche or favorite sports car. And they said, and I said, actually, I don't own a car. And the reporter was kind of took a step back, because I think, we think that we have to look rich to have the toys, but I'd rather be rich and I'd rather help other people through that.
Oh, I like that. So just to finish that conversation, you first property, okay, I got that. But by the time you finish uni, unless you're at uni for like 20 years, which I can understand, you had 13 properties. I mean, uni is a short period of time. What are we talking, 4 years? And you end up with 13 properties?
Yes, I did take a bit longer. I did go for 5 years at university. But one method that I recommend and that I used was I did small developments. So I might buy a small single house on a corner lot and work out how I could build and get approval for a second property behind and then subdivide it. The strategy that I used to build my portfolio was probably a way that maximized the number that I could get as quick as possible. One mistake that I did make, by the time I did get to 26, I did have all those properties, 13 properties. My portfolio was significantly negatively geared. And that was a mistake that I made. And so maybe we can talk about further. But I mean, the second phase of my portfolio that I made sure that it was positively geared.
Just explain that to the great unwashed. Negative versus positive gear?
So positive gear, or actually positive cash flow is a correct term that we try to go for. So when you've got enough rent to pay for all the expenses, excluding depreciation, Positive gearing is if you include depreciation. So in other words, you're not paying money out of your back pocket.
It's actually making you money.
Yes, that's right.
I was going to ask you about your favourite property investment strategy, which is dual occupancy, where you actually find a property that allows you don't want to pull that primary residence down. There want to be space on that block that you have bought to build a second residence that could have its own title that's going to add capital value immediately and generate income immediately through rental. That's kind of where you're at. Because I've seen you've listed about 12 different strategies.
Yeah, it's taken a long time to get to that point, but now I've done it for clients now and done hundreds of them. But for myself, the dual occupancy subdivision strategy, I call it, is where you find a property that's got an existing dwelling on it that you don't have to knock down. Because as soon as you knock it down, you end up having to pay the rebuild costs. You keep the existing asset and then you build behind or on the side if it's a corner lot. And depending on where you are, depending on the local government rules, then often you can subdivide that dual occupancy and you end up with hopefully 2 dwellings, one new, one old. You sell off the old one and you pay off a lot of the debt. So you keep the new one, which often means you don't have to pay GST because you're not classified as a developer. You also get the depreciation and you've paid down your debt. And so you can in fact get a positive cash flow property in a major city in Australia, which you can't usually get now with granny flats.
Colin, it sounds so simple. You know what I love about this, and listeners obviously can't see Colin, I can. Colin, you describe that strategy which you have implemented for hundreds of clients through your business council approval with a real smile on your face. You still clearly just love the fact that you've discovered this magic kind of magic, yeah.
Yes.
Magic.
Yeah, I think more people should be talking about it. But yeah,
Totally.
I'm a bit of a nerd in that way.
Yeah, well, I wish this was a property podcast because I'd continue to interrogate you. Maybe we can come back to it. But you are a man of quotes. You've already mentioned one from Stephen R. Covey. This other one from, just tell me about it. John C. Maxwell has influenced your life immensely. And there's a quote that you share where he says, you can either play now and pay later, or pay now and play later. Regardless of the choice, one thing is certain, life will demand a payment. Tell me how that's influenced you.
Massive. I think as a business owner, as any individual, we're so tempted to spend the money to not save for the future, to make those decisions for the now. But really the thing that's made a difference in my life and the main reason I was able to purchase so many properties as a young person or take these sort of risks that I have in my life, it's because I've made the hard decisions. I've paid the price. And the great thing, before we finish the discussion, I guess, on property investing, if you can get into the market as a young person in the 20s and 30s, and if, in theory, property doubles every 10 years in Australia, for example, then, or in a major nation around the world, then by the time you're in retirement age, it literally means millions of dollars in your retirement. And so, pay now and play later.
I'm just having to do some really deep breathing, Colin, as we have this conversation, because I'm 53. And I've done okay out of property. Every time I've bought a house, I've sold it for more at some point, and it's allowed me to buy a better house. But I don't think that's very smart. I feel like, I could have owned, how many properties and, So whoever's listening, I know there are a lot of young entrepreneurs listening to this show. So here is a great opportunity to learn a little bit more, and I'll give you some details about how to find out what Colin offers later in this episode. Colin, 13 properties at your peak when you left uni. You then decided to sell down your 13 property portfolio and go to Africa. Why?
Yeah, this is a great story. And really, I hope what's coming across in this is it's not about the money. It's not about the wealth that we create. It's about the people that we impact. And I realized that I was at a point where I felt like I'd reached a lot of goals in my life, but I realized that creating wealth was not the end game. I used to think it was, but it wasn't. It was, in my belief, it was what you do with your wealth to help other people. And so an opportunity presented itself to go to Africa. Against the advice of a lot of people around me, I went, and it was just an amazing experience to be at the grassroots of society.
Before you tell us about that experience, I'm always interested in the naysayers, because it's often, as business owners, the naysayers are always there. They've always got something to say. If we launch a new product, if we rename our business, if we embark on some crazy marketing strategy, there'll always be someone to say, you're crazy. What you've got at the moment is working fine. Why change? What did you say to your naysayers?
You mentioned John Maxwell a little bit earlier, and another quote that he has is that you have to give up to go up. And I felt like I had mastered a certain aspect of my life, which was the financial side, but I was missing out on so much of it. So to deal with the naysayers, which is always hard, and you love the people which say that, but I think I just had to have faith in the future that something was going to be bigger and better, that I could make a bigger impact. I didn't know at that time, I guess, what it would be like. So yeah, I was backed up against the wall of faith, and I just had to take that next step. I didn't 100% know how it was going to work out. And for a period of time, it was to my financial detriment.
Okay, we'll come to that. So you get to Africa. What are you doing?
Okay, yeah. So I was actually in South Africa, Namibia, dealing with people that live what they call in township, left over from apartheid, interacting with people on a very personal level. I was in places where it was not too long after apartheid finished. It was kind of 15 years after, something like that. And so most of the people hadn't seen a white guy in their town, let alone in their home. And so that was a really, really good experience. I learned so much. And one of the biggest things that I learned was, they taught me way more than I ever helped or taught them. And one of the things that I really learned from them was that if you have a glimmer of hope, there is so much power in the present. And so they say, yeah, when there's hope in the future, there's power in the present. And whether it's going through the challenging economic times, which we might be in at the moment, or whatever it is in your life, if you just have that glimmer of hope, it allows you to push through. I was with people that there was a 60% unemployment rate. We talk about an 8 or 10% unemployment rate. There was a 60% unemployment rate. There was an HIV rate of 42%. If you could just help people to have a glimmer of hope, it would bring great value to their power in their life.
You would have clearly seen some distressing things and been in some distressing situations. Was there a moment where you kind of sat back and gone, oh, gee, I have left something very, very comfortable back home in Australia? I could be driving that Porsche. I could be buying another property. I could be just expanding my empire. Was there a moment where you kind of kicked yourself?
Yeah, there was. There was some very tough times. It was very confronting, obviously. I remember at one stage I was walking around helping to promote immunization for measles or something like that. And I'd been walking most of the day, and I crossed this huge sand dune, and I thought I was at the end of, I guess, what you call a shanty town. And I looked out over the horizon, and there was probably another 100,000 dwellings down there. And I thought, this is these people, they struggle to have one meal, let alone three. Obviously, confronted a lot with death and disease and the challenges that it presents. But it really helped me to understand more about we need to get ourselves, if you're listening to this, we need to get ourselves into a position where we can serve humanity, whatever the passion that it is that you have, whatever the cause. And so much of our life is consumed by our businesses, by our financial pursuits. But if we can get ourselves into a position where we can assist other people, the world needs you. There is such a great need. I was walking through these places, and I thought, where are the charities? Where are the ones that I hear growing up in Australia you think the world is taken care of? They weren't there. There was no one there. And it's up to us.
On the upside, Colin, you did learn, I don't even know what you call it, but the clicking language.
Yes, Clossa. So there you go. So Clossa, there's 3 clicks. It's kind of like The Gods Must Be Crazy, except they have 5 clicks in that movie. One of my favorite words was change, which is, forgive me if anybody actually speaks this language properly, I might mispronounce it, but it was uguguka, which means change. Uguguka.
Could you please say it's been so much fun to be on the Small Business Big Marketing podcast in click?
I think I bite my tongue.
Is that a no?
Yes. Yeah, I've kind of lost a lot of it, but it was, just beautiful people, beautiful language.
Okay, so you have a couple of years in Africa. You then decide to return to Australia. It's time to maybe get some commercial reality back in your life. Describe the situation that you came back to, because you still owned a handful of properties.
Yeah, of the 13, I had 2 left. And one I tried to sell, and it just wouldn't sell. And I was so annoyed that the market had dropped significantly. This was 2012, kind of just post GFC. I owed $150,000. So if you added up all of my assets compared to how much I owed, I was worth negative $150,000. And I thought, I am worth less in so many ways, but financially, I'm worth less than the people that I was serving in Africa. That was a confronting thought. But then to make it worse, one of my properties, the one that I bought first when I was a young guy, 19 years old, put my heart and soul into it for 6 months, renovated it, built the kitchen, everything. I got a phone call, and it was the week of my engagement party with my now wife. And I got a phone call from the managing agent, and they said, "Oh, Colin, I'm really sorry. Your house has burned down overnight." And so that was hard, and turned up at this house that I loved, that I put so much love into. And yeah, the tenant had fallen asleep with the candle going. The fire department couldn't save it. So I was now left with a house that was burned down and a property that I couldn't sell and worth negative $150,000. I thought that my time in property and business was it. I thought I'd seen my heyday and I was going to move on to something else.
I'm always interested in these moments in entrepreneurs' lives. Past guests, Andy and Angela Smith, who own Dr. Drip Plumbing, who I think you may well know.
Yes,
great people. I mean, they really hit rock bottom. Like it's an incredible story. Andy talks about going out on the headland where they lived and sort of going, you know what everything I've built has just fallen to pieces, and I've got to go home and tell my wife, and not sure where we're going to go. They asked themselves some pretty smart questions and turned things around. The rest is history. You had two choices at that point in time. House is burnt down, 150 grand in debt, poorer than the people that you'd spent time in Africa with from a financial sense. What goes through your mind? What strength do you pull on in order to go, I'm going to move forward here. I'm going to be back bigger and better than ever?
It was probably a principle that you can never unlearn what you already know. And I had that kind of feeling when I was in Africa, that I'd had so many experiences that it was up to me no matter what environment I found myself in, if I could draw on my experiences from life, the time that I invested in my education, if I could draw on that, then I could pull myself out of it. And I remember I called my then fiance when I got that telephone call that the house had burned down. And I called my fiance because it was going to be our matrimonial home, and we're going to move into there after we got married. And I called her and I said, Lauren, my wife's name's Lauren. I said, Lauren, our house burned down last night. But the story goes that I said, I phrased it poorly. I said, "Hey, honey, I've got some news to tell you. Are you sitting down?" And this is the week of our public engagement. And she thought that I was breaking up with her. And then when I said, the house is burning down, she breathed a huge sigh of relief. But I think that the people around you can support you during those times as well. And I certainly wouldn't have been able to rebuild my portfolio to what it is today if it wasn't for her encouragement and support.
It sounds like you're good at doing something that many entrepreneurs and business founders aren't. And that is being, I think you call it, interdependent, which is to rely on others, or at least look to others for support. You've looked to your dad to, be guarantor on your first property purchase. You've looked to your wife to kind of get you out of the muck that you found yourself in. Two people that you would expect to lean on. Sometimes it's harder to lean on others who mentors or business people in other areas. What do you say to those listening who are too proud to lean on others?
Yeah, it is hard. I remember, was it Sir Isaac Newton said, if I've seen further, it's because I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. And he was a man who was just took the field of, was it physics, even further. But he gave credit to the people that were around him and supported him up to that point. Yeah, as an individual, particularly, we're ingrained to be self-reliant, to have grit, to have perseverance. You can do it. But often it's the people around us who get us to that point. What does Robert Kiyosaki say? If I'm the smartest person on my team is in trouble. You really need the right people, whether it's Timbo on the podcast and this sort of environment that you have around you. If you don't have that with you, but you need that support to get through things in business and life.
Interesting. You have an insatiable appetite for quotes and an incredible memory. I don't know how you turn that into $1, but it's pretty impressive.
I might have run out of quotes. So I think that's all I got now.
Give us one more. I want to talk about the council approval experts, which is the business you have, but just to close the loop of rebuilding your property portfolio, which I assume you have in order to now sort of put your hand up and go, we're the people to come to. How did you do that? What did that look like?
Yeah, so it took kind of faith and belief in the future. Yeah, I was able to buy the very first one. I bought the worst possible property. We turned it from a 1-bedroom to a 2-bedroom. We then got an approval for a granny flat. And that is now a high performer in our portfolio. And we rebuilt the one that burned down. It took 3 years to get the insurance payout, but we rebuilt it. But this time we attached a granny flat. So also it was positive cash flow. And then we thought, hang on, we're onto something here. And we chose the best of the experiences that I've had in real estate and different investment strategies, and I've tried nearly all of them, or at least seen people do it through our clients, and then chose the dual occupancy strategy, which we talked about before. And so very quickly was able to, in the space of about 4 years, rebuild a portfolio, which had probably taken me 10 years before. We did it in the space of 4 years. And that was my wife and I, because we were able to draw on what we already knew.
How many you got now?
Well, I'd have to count, but it's close to 10.
Oh, I'm
it's
sorry
close
to hear
to
that.
10. But what's the great thing is that it is positive cash flow now. And just an example, I mean, if you are thinking about doing these sort of, whether it's a dual occupancy subdivision or secondary dwelling, granny flat, my wife and I, only 18 months ago, we built the granny flat behind our house where we live. And yeah, we might have compromised a little bit of our backyard, but it now pays 100% of our mortgage. And I'm in my 30s. I have 2 young kids, and just the financial pressure that's taken off us is huge. And it's not just about the money that you're creating. They say the lifestyle, but it's the marriages that are saved. It's the dreams that you're able to live because you're not financially stressed through things like COVID-19.
So, okay, you've got your property portfolio back up. You've got 10 properties. You then decide to start a business called the Council Approval Experts. You've almost answered my first question, which is why, because you clearly don't need the income, but there is something about helping others and being that guy that is out there sort of showing the way of how others can do it. And clearly, yeah, it's like saving marriages. Like I've got a chiropractor mate, he goes, I'm off to save lives, Timbo. So that's how he sees his business. He doesn't see it as in adjustments. He sees it as saving lives, and you don't see yours as getting council approvals. You see it as saving marriages or making people happier, right?
Absolutely. And if you're a business owner and you're really tying into that why, you've got to transcend about what you do. You've got to talk about why we do it. And for us at Council Approval Experts, we're now rebranding, about to launch Council Approval Group. The why for us is to unleash property potential so that we can help people to live the dream that they want to save the marriage. Maybe it's a small business owner that's wanted to have a cafe or a gym or whatever it is, and they just need the council approval they need. We realize, okay, we're not pushing papers. Yeah, we're not just creating reports. We're not just getting approvals. We're actually creating dreams. If you can connect into that as a small business owner, your why, it really helps you to push through the tough times.
Describe the business. What do you do?
Okay, so we achieve council approval for people, and that then takes on a variety of different forms. So for the small business owner that may need an approval that's holding them back, maybe it's expanding a cafe or a restaurant or a dance studio or anything like that. Sometimes the red tape can get in the way. So we hope to take the stress out of it for people. So we're a private consultancy that's made up of town planners, architects, and local government professionals. And then one thing that we love doing, though, is people come to us and they think, I just want to put an extra income on our property. We want to put a granny flat, a secondary residence. And then we find, hang on, you could actually subdivide this and create an even better strategy. So we're really trying to unleash that property potential for people. You
went into this business with your dad, tapped him on the shoulder again. I don't need you to guarantor anything this time, Dad. I just need you to be my business partner. Was it you approaching him or him approaching you? Because he is also a town planning legend, from what I understand. Yeah, Dad, Max Fragar, is a life fellow of the Planning Institute, and he's certainly a Jedi Knight of the planning profession. And I tapped actually Max on the shoulder, my dad, and I said, hey, Dad, I'm learning about business. I love it. I would love to turn your business into a real business. And he said, hang on a second, it's been running for 15 years. What do you mean a real business? Yeah, just cool your jets, son. Yes. So, then joined him. That was 10 years ago, and now it's turned into what it is today. We've got about 20 to 25 team members. We serve thousands of clients, and it's been a really rewarding thing. I think many of the listeners may be working with family, maybe have family businesses, and I think if a family business can work, it works really, really well. Because, we're talking about interdependence. When the tough times do come, you're in there late. You're not looking at your paycheck. You're, okay, we've got to make this business survive. Thousands of clients, 20 to 25 staff. How many approvals do you reckon you've got through?
We know we've helped over 13,000 get along their journey. Some people don't go all the way through to approval and they just decide it's not quite the right timing for them. So we've probably done over 5,000 approvals.
Oh, that's awesome. You proud?
Yeah, super proud. Yeah, I think it's more the people that we help, more than anything than the numbers, but it's been great.
So let's talk marketing. You've got some pretty interesting initiatives, some of which we haven't spoken about on this podcast previously. So Yeah, you're doing some smart things to grow the business. Let's break them down. You do booked consults rather than just taking anyone's call. So what does that look like?
Okay, so we're a service-based business, as many of you will have. And so often in a service-based field, people just call up with an inquiry and you try to take their inquiry on the run. What that does is it's got a lot of momentum behind it, and you just kind of runaway train and you can't stop it. So what we've done, we've had some good people working with us, but I think it was Ari Garper taught us this principle, that if you can have a booked-in consultation, then what it does is it elevates your status as a professional or as an expert in your industry. So people like a doctor, you don't just turn up to the doctor's surgery and say, hey, I want to see a doctor. You book in an appointment. Same with your accountant, you book in for an appointment. So we've taken that concept to elevate the status of the appointment. Now, when we actually get to the consultation, what that means is that people have hopefully already done a bit of research on us, but we've positioned ourselves as someone that's the expert rather than just, hey, I've got a question on the phone, can you answer it?
Love it. Love it. So you were framing the consult in a much more kind of serious and considered way as opposed to, just someone ringing up and getting their questions answered then. Because you never feel like, you don't even know whether you're speaking to the right person at that point. So once they've booked a consult, you don't have the professional. You don't. If I booked a consult with you, I'm not speaking to a town planner, but you've actually got dedicated salespeople who I guess have knowledge but are there to convert the inquiry into a sale. You sneaky young man, Colin.
It's been a game changer actually for us. So what the conversation is about, so every business is different, but for people that are inquiring for us, they're basically wondering if they can get council approval. But before we can diagnose, we need to understand their needs. So this discussion then is handled by a non-technician, you could say. And I think a lot of service-based industries get this wrong. In that initial consultation, they have their technicians or their professionals taking that initial consult. Now, the challenge with that is that they tend to give away all of the answers and they're not very good at selling. And so just like I've got the actual stats here, and maybe I can share them with everybody. So for years, literally years, we had our town planners or our technicians doing that initial consult and their conversion rate was 5%. So what's that? 20 phone calls, we convert 1. And we were almost going broke just on this front end by the time we pay for Google Ads and everything else. We then swapped it about 18 months ago, and we now have people who are salespeople. And I'll tell you a bit more about the type of salespeople we look for. But these salespeople are now converting at 20%. What's that? 4 times the conversion rate just by switching the professional away from selling. The good thing about that, and it's created value for the client as well, because the sales consultant understands their need, helps them to come up with the first step. And that first step then is usually a paid service to talk to our professional.
2 questions there. Is there a frustration amongst the person getting the consult that's like, hey, but I just want to know whether I can subdivide. I just want to know whether I can do a dual occupancy. I just want to, and clearly your technicians in days gone by would give away that information. Your salespeople redirect that kind of conversation to, here's some considerations. Give us a sense of what you're wanting to achieve. And so sort of building up that profile of the person before any advice is given.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's almost diagnosis before prognosis is malpractice. And what that means is so often we try to come up with solutions for people before we really understand them. So that initial consultant is trying to really understand what their situation is. So then they can say, okay, doctor, okay, town planner, this is the situation. Go to work. Let's go and create a solution for them. So yeah, people haven't been frustrated at that because often people that call up, they just want to be able to talk about them, their favorite topic themselves. They want to tell us about what their challenges are. So we go through a bit of a step process in that discussion. So it's probably been talked about previously in the podcast, but things like, okay, tell us what are your challenges you're facing. So what's your dreams? What's your challenges you're facing? And what's your obstacles? And then at that point, we have what we're calling a trust-based kind of conversation. We've deliberately hired people which we would describe as a farmer rather than a hunter. So often salespeople, unfortunately, are very high-pressure sales. They're very focused on getting that sale. However, we've recruited deliberately personalities and people who love nurturing relationships. So it gets to the point in the conversation, we can get it now to the point, and you can almost hear it in the conversation, where the person that's called says, okay, what's the next step? Like, you understand me? Okay, let's do it. And they're asking for it rather than us pushing it.
How do you identify a farmer?
Good question. A farmer. We go through quite an extensive recruitment process. We are looking for someone that builds relationships, that has not necessarily come from a sales background. So particularly sometimes in real estate is not the right background. So yeah, a farmer is somebody who is more excited about the right thing for the client than selling them what you have to offer.
I'm guessing you don't incentivize a farmer then. They're on a salary?
We have a split of that. Yeah, good question. We found if we just do a 100% commission base, it's the wrong type of person. They're all focused on the sale. Also, if you focus, I think, 100% on the salary, on a base salary, without any commission, then sometimes you also attract the wrong person. They're a little bit too cruisy and a little bit too much of a farmer. So we found the right happy medium with a retainer, and then we pay them a commission based on each sale, which is not a huge commission, but it helps.
5%, the bar was low of converting when you had technicians taking the inquiries, the consults. 20% is awesome. It's, what do we work that out? 200%? Is that 200%?
Yeah, four times.
Four times?
Yeah, 4 times.
That's good. That's still 80% of people who aren't converting, of which I am sure there is a percentage who at the end of the consult go, not for me. So we put them aside. I don't know what percentage that is. It feels as though you're leaving a lot of money on the table. What are you still not getting right?
I think I need a bit more of a consult with Timbo on that. But I think that's something that we're not getting right is that post-nurture. And I think that after we have that conversation, at the moment, we're just so inundated with inquiries, it's hard to keep up with the volume. But I think what we need to do better in the future is to send them more information, which is of value for them. And so something that we've done recently, and we've worked really hard during this last little time, is that we've do we talk about those videos that we created?
We are going to get, sure, go for it. Yeah. You've just, you have in the last few months produced 235 videos.
Yeah.
Okay, where's that play into this? So, are you avoiding my tough question before you go on?
I think, yeah, to finish up on that question, I think what do you do with those 80% that don't convert? Because it's easy to attract the people that are ready to buy.
Hey, by the way, here's your get out of jail free card, Colin. You're right. I don't know. You can say that, which is what, again, our friends Angela and Andy Smith, one of the great bits of advice they said was, as business owners, let's not pretend we know everything.
Yes. Yeah. And so, we've got a lot of work to do on that, and we're certainly leaving a lot of money on the table.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. And you are inundated by inquiry. So again, let's just continue to work through these wonderful marketing initiatives. Do you want to talk about the 235 videos you've just produced? That's a lot. What are you talking about? Why?
So one of the challenges we have is cost of traffic. And one thing that we want to improve on is our search engine optimization. And so what we've done is we've extracted, in this case, 235 keywords. Each one of those videos is around a keyword. And so people around you can help you with that if you're not sure how to do it, but you access the top keywords for your industry. And then what we did was we put them in a huge spreadsheet. And then for every keyword, we created a question or a statement. And then literally I stood in a studio for 4 days and we recorded 2 to 3 minute videos on each one of those keywords or statements. For example, if the keyword was for us, how to subdivide my property. Or subdivision, how to subdivide. So we've created a question, how to subdivide my property, and then we do a 2 or 3 minute extract on that. Once we've got those videos created, each one of those is going to be a blog post, which is transcribed. And then we're going to release one of those pages every day. So we'll program them in advance. So we'll have literally almost a year's worth of content, one per day. And if we can get our website to 500, 1,000 pages, then we're hoping Google will like it.
That is awesome. And may I contribute a couple of additional ideas to build on that?
Absolutely. That'd be great.
So I talk about this in my book, The Boomerang Effect, and you may already be doing this, but so you've created 235 videos. You have created, therefore, 235 blog posts, individual pages on your website that give Google additional opportunity to index your business. That's awesome. I would encourage you to then add a knowledge center or a learning hub button to your primary navigation bar and look at it as a sort of FAQ section on steroids. So if I were to click on Learning Hub on your navigation bar, I would then go to a page that says, we get asked so many questions about all the different aspects of town planning and approvals and all that kind of stuff. We've broken them up into categories. Behind each category is every single question that's on your mind answered by video. So you kind of get down to 4, 5, 6 categories, and then behind them are all your questions. And it's still one question with one rich answer per page. which is very powerful. So you've packaged it up into this learning hub. The real power, beyond just Google and the SEO juice that you're going to get out of it, is the one-on-one marketing value of this. So when a client rings up and says, what is a DA, which I think is a design application in your language, right? You can answer that question, but then you can grab the link from your knowledge center and send it to your client, and they're going to think you're a legend because you have gone to the trouble. It's like high perceived value to them, low cost to you.
Yes. And that's brilliant, Timbo. And those 80% that don't convert, we can say, hey, but I've got a great video on this. I'm just going to send it to you.
Totally. Absolutely. And again, this is all part of that nurturing process. Okay, that's amazing. Do you mind if I just ask, did you get a professional crew in to do that over the course of 2 or 3 days, or have you just been doing it on your iPhone?
I think you can do either. It just depends on what station you're at with business. We used Dale Beaumont's got a studio here in Sydney, and so we used his studio, and it's called Bizversity Studio. So we did hire a team there just because we've done the green screens, we've done the ones where we tried to do it ourselves, and we just realized to get to that number, we needed a professional. So we bit the bullet and did it properly.
And are you fronting every single one of those videos?
Yes, so you're probably seeing me around the internet. I'm sorry about that. No, actually, we did get some other team members to join us as well, but I did most of them. And but it's good to have some variety. So we did have, probably about 20% of them done by other team members.
Okay, Colin, now I want to get back to these consults. A couple of things you do with the consult. Once they're booked, you send the prospect a trust box, overnight express, which includes what?
Yeah, this is key. Okay, so they call us or they go on the internet, they book an appointment, which is a number of days in advance, maybe 2 or 3 days in advance. And overnight express, we send what we call a trust pack or a trust box. And in this trust packet is one of the key things that we have is what we call a magalog. And a magalog is, I guess, a hybrid between a magazine and a catalog, information plus a little bit of selling. What that does is it positions us, and we did some testing on this. If somebody can get one of these ahead of the appointment, if they can get one of these magalogs overnight express, if they can get it ahead of the actual consultation, it's a 6x conversion to what if they didn't have it. It changes the conversation because the conversation changes from, do you guys have the experience that I need, to, okay, I can see you have the experience. Now let's talk about me. One key point, though, is it's got to be overnight. And I thought, no way I'm paying Australia Post $10, $12, whatever it is, to send out a bunch of these. And we did some testing on that, and I wanted to share that today as well, because some of you might be interested. If you send it overnight express compared to just normal snail mail, we experienced a 20% increase in conversion rate by doing overnight express.
Bang. So therefore, part of your strategy would be to try and book consults at least 48 hours out, 72 hours out.
Yep. So we have a setting on our booking forms so they can't book in the next day.
Oh, that's brilliant. Tell me about the Magalog, because again, these things were huge. And our Magalog, you say what it is and what's in your Magalog.
Okay, so a Magalog is something that I learned, again, from Dale Beaumont. He talks a bit about it, but some of the things that it helps with is that it turns, particularly for a service-based industry, it turns it from an intangible product to something that's more tangible. If somebody can actually see something physical, we've done this so that's actually a printed version. We do have an online version, but people's inboxes are usually cluttered. So it's a physical one, can sit on their coffee table. It helps to present your services to the significant other as well. It sits on the coffee table and say, hey, honey, I'm going to talk to these guys. What do you think? Instead of like, oh, I just talked to these guys, honey, what do you think? No, I am spending that much money. Instead, they've already had a look at it. It helps the service, I think, to look a little bit more premium, to give a little bit more confidence. We found also that we can handle a lot of the customer or client objections or FAQs ahead of time. For us, it's a 40-page. You don't need to have 40 pages by any means. We've got, you can't see it obviously, but it's got a photograph of my family on the front. We tried to make it personable. I was listening to one of your podcasts recently, Timbo. We really got to make sure that you're having your personal brand on there. So it's got a lot of the personal brand and trying to make it, connecting into our target market. It's
essentially a magazine, right? You call it a Magalog, but it's a magazine.
Yeah, we call it ours, Council Approval Magazine. Yeah.
Is it a one-off, or are you producing these things quarterly or half yearly?
We are producing them quarterly because we're finding that we need to keep updating them as the business evolves and our strategies change to connect into things and also to freshen it up.
What do they cost?
So a lot of it can be done in-house. If for a lot of business owners, you already have your graphic designer. You just need to find one that you like and say, okay, I like this. Can you kind of re-engineer it for my business? Cost of printing and getting it printed. By the time that it gets printed, it's about $2 or $3 per copy. And by the time it gets to the person and we pay for postage and handling and everything, it's probably about $20. But when you're selling a service which is over $1,000, then it's certainly worth it.
What else is in the Trust Pack, Colin?
Okay, Trust Pack is a letter of introduction, which introduces us. We've also got a number of Trust Packs as well. So at different points within the customer cycle, customer journey, once they move to the next level, so after we do our initial assessment, it might be, okay, we're going to start a development application for people. They'll get another Trust Pack. And so there's different things at different levels. Some things include newspaper clippings or media articles that you've all seen them on the website as featured in Timbo's podcast. Then it might have a copy of a transcript from Timbo's podcast or whatever it is, or from the local newspaper. Also, you can, and we have experimented with this, you can have little videos in there, like a little, either a USB or something like that you can look at.
Yeah, I love it. You're just nurturing all the way along and giving people, you identified it, like giving people reason to trust you. So that whole question of, are you any good? Do you know what you're talking about? Is done. You've sorted that. And then, like you say, you get onto that consulting call and it's 100% about them and they're going to love that. They don't know they love it, but they love it. That's really good. Tell me about your domain name. You need to just address my OCD here. councilapproval.com.au. Beautiful. Keyword rich. Did you register that naively because it was available, or has it just been fantastic for search engine optimization?
Yeah, we did actually. What I'd recommend to listeners, if you haven't done it already, is just to come up with all your keywords and go and register, go and spend whatever it is, $500 on registering your domain names, because it was also by accident that we registered this one. We registered everything that we could think of. And then after a lot of thought, we realized, okay, what's our why? We don't push papers. We're not town planners. And this is important for service-based industries. We think we're defined by a profession or our industry, but what is the end service we're delivering? The end service we're delivering is not a town planning report or architecture plans. It's to get council approval. So we deliberately focused on the keyword which people are looking for when they search on the internet for the end deliverable, not for the service they're looking for. You
said you're about to go through a rebrand to call yourselves the Council Approval Group. Is that right?
Yeah, so we've had council approval experts for some time. We're moving into council approval group now, just because it allows us to add in some more professionals. So we're going to be expanding to have engineers and things under our group. We really want to offer an end-to-end solution for people. One thing I think which is challenging for any business owner is if you only do a part of the customer's journey, you're leaving the rest of the outcome to chance for somebody else. And so for me, my why is not to grow a business. It's not to create wealth. My why for business is to help people. And if I don't get the actual project built, for me, it's development applications. If I don't get the end building constructed, then sometimes it's not worth the effort.
Are you expanding beyond New South Wales?
We are, yes. So after many years of just being in one state, we've had a bigger vision, which is kind of scary because for us in our industry, it's state-based legislation. It requires a lot of planning to be able to jump states, but we keep getting a lot of inquiries from interstate, and we'd love to be able to help people around the nation.
Exciting. So going totally national, or are you going to go?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll roll it out one state at a time over a 2-year period. But yeah, we're going to be rolling it out. I think what that does is it just means that we can use things, whether it's in our value statement, like we've got in our values, in our mission, Australia's best. Like we can't really say that we're Australia's best or the nation's best unless we actually service the whole nation.
Fair enough. Hey, Colin, Fragar, awesome story. Well told. I love what you're doing. I love the marketing that you're doing. In order just to wrap this episode up, I'd love you to just say goodbye in African click.
I thought you could ask for me like any last pearls of wisdom or...
Well, I'll give you a tip. That's a very dangerous question. It's like the interviewer says, I'm out of questions. Anything else you'd like to say? And it's like, oh my goodness, that is dangerous. So I'm not asking you that. I'm just saying, hey, in click, say goodbye.
Yeah. Well, it's not. It doesn't have any click, unfortunately. It's Mulluani. But I'd like to say, a big Nkosi, I should say, Nkosi to everybody. A thank you to everybody for listening to this. And maybe just a final thought as well is, I recently, my wife just had a second child, and compare that to my first child. My first child was born. He's 3 years old now, and I've got a photo which haunts me. And it's a photo of me sitting in the hospital the day after he was born, with headphones and a laptop working whilst nursing him. And I missed so many precious moments with my son because I was so focused on my business. And so hopefully these things that Timbo shares with you each week are meaningful, because if you can get yourself to a point where you can experience life more, compare that now. 6 months ago, my wife gave birth to a beautiful girl, and I was able to take 2 or 3 weeks off to enjoy that time with her. So I wish everybody best of success, and thank you, Timbo, for having me.
Well done, Colin. Thanks, buddy. Well, there you go, team. Council approvals, Colin Fragar, one very, very smart marketer. Here's what grabbed my attention from that chat. Attention grabber number 1. I love how Colin obsesses around being well informed in order to make the right decisions. I think his exact words were, and I quote, "Be obsessed, get educated," close quote. Attention grabber number 2. I love how Colin stopped taking new inquiries on the run, just from anyone who decided to call in, but instead opted for booked-in consultations with actually trained salespeople, not technical experts. And as he said, the technicians give away way too much, whereas the salesperson works hard to understand the prospect's dreams and fears and then provides a more tailored and personalised solution. So as a result, Colin's conversion rates skyrocket. And attention grabber number 3. I love the trust box his team send out to a prospect. And I particularly love the Magalog idea. You know, when so much of our lives and our marketing is spent online, I reckon it's really refreshing and a significant point of difference to see some old school ideas working so well. I think he said the trust box increased conversion by a lazy 600%. It's awesome. That's what grabbed my attention. I'd love to know what grabbed yours. Head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/512 and leave a comment.
Come on down. It's Timbo's Monster Prize Draw.
Yes, indeedly doodly. It's time to reward another motivated listener for taking some serious marketing action. And today's winner is Aussie expat Katrina Wilton of flyscreens.ae. AE, that would be the Arab Emirates, I am guessing. Katrina, well done. This is what she has to say. She says, "G'day, Timbo. Great show, and my husband and I await eagerly each week for a new episode to drop. We've been listening to the show for a number of years, and my husband has worked his way through your entire back catalogue." Oh, Katrina, I'm sorry. I hope he's giving you some attention as well. His recent comment to me was that he'd learnt more practical marketing tips in your podcast than he did in his business degree and MBA combined. Bang. I love that. A big thank you to all past guests for contributing to that. Katrina goes on to say, "I run a small but growing business that manufactures and installs insect screens and security mesh in Dubai. We're Aussie expats living in Dubai and wanted the screens ourselves, so decided to set up a business offering what is a unique product in the region." I think all successful businesses, well, many anyway, start from when the business founder is experiencing a problem that they can't solve out in the marketplace. Love it. Katrina goes on to say, "As we've been growing, we've been doing a lot of thinking about the client experience as they move through our funnel. Your episode with Jonathan Baruch hit home and gave us a kick along to map every client touch point. I also remember another episode with Ray Cicluni who talked about exceeding every single client's expectations. I'll put links in the show notes to both those episodes because they were crackers. Easier said than done, says Katrina, but with the help of mapping our touch points, we were able to modify some of the interactions and reduce the number of different staff that interacted with our clients. This led to better management of our clients and higher satisfaction levels. And that is gold, says Katrina. Warm regards, Katrina Wilson, flyscreens.ae. Katrina, that is just a wonderful, wonderful email for sending that in. And I hope I can send these to you. If I can't, maybe you'll need to give a friend these gifts in Australia. But a full range of Lyre's non-alcoholic spirits valued at over $500, a hardcover copy of Jamie Mustard's book, The Iconist, a Bonjoro license, vouchers from Sendle, Flora and Fauna and Tradies. You get promotion on this show right now and a backlink in the show notes, which Google love. Everyone else, send me one idea that's working for you that you've learnt from this show, what impact it's had on your business. Keep it to 50 to 100 words. And if I read it out on air, you win. Well, that about brings us almost to the end of episode 512. If you loved it, head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com/512 and leave me a comment. There's plenty more where this came from. Plus, you'll find my entire archive of episodes and blog posts. There's about 85 blog posts from memory over at smallbusinessbigmarketing.com. Next time, you and I catch up with Luke Chant. He's a member of my Facebook tribe, and he recently posted an article on LinkedIn titled 10 Steps to Business Success by a Moderately Successful Business Owner. And that caught my attention, and he shares those 10 steps. It's fantastic. Because not all of us are trying to build the next Nike or the next Apple, right? Some of us just want a bit of moderate success in these troubled times. If you're getting value from listening, then please let other business owners know about the Small Business Big Marketing podcast, which was presented by me, Tim Reid. Until next time, thanks so much for tuning in. Now get out there and take action.